On some coastlines, mystery looks like fog. On this one, it looks like a burned-out boat on an empty beach and a question that crosses a border. A respected skipper leaves on what should be a simple charter out of Sodwana Bay. By the next day, his boat is lying wrecked and burned on the Mozambique shore. The skipper is gone, his passenger is gone, and almost everything that should be simple is not. This is the story of the ski boat Magnum Too and the disappearance of John Matambu Dercksen. Before we talk about the boat, we need to talk about the man the ocean knew. On South Africa's northeast coast, John Dercksen was not just another skipper. To locals in the bay, he was Matambu, a nickname in Zulu that roughly suggests tall, thin, and ropey, a sign of respect for someone who had put in years on the water. He was no tourist and no beginner. Rescuers and community members described him as well-known, respected, and experienced. The kind of skipper where not checking in on time is not just a delay. It is the first real sign that something is wrong. The timeline begins on Saturday, the 16th of March, 2024. That morning, the ski boat launches from Sodwana Bay. It is a charter trip heading out into the Indian Ocean, not far from the border with Mozambique. On board are Matambu and a single client. According to the booking, this charter was originally supposed to be for a man, his wife, and a child. But when departure time comes, only one man actually boards the boat. On paper, that is just an adjustment. In hindsight, it is the first detail that does not sit right. Later reports would say that the contact information given for the booking did not check out, and that some details did not match the man who actually went to sea. Those points come from media interviews and family statements, not from a public verdict, so they belong in the reported, not proven in court column. What is confirmed is simple and brutal. Magnum Too was due back that same day. She did not return. By late afternoon, concern turned into action. At about 5 in the afternoon, sea rescue authorities are alerted. Magnum Too is overdue in circumstances that already look suspicious, enough for people on shore to fear foul play. This is not just they are running late. It is something is wrong. As evening turns to night, the search widens. Rescue craft, police seaborder units, conservation officials, and a private fixed-wing aircraft begin combing the water and coastline, working northwards toward Mozambique. Around 10 that night, there is a reported sighting. A ski boat that looks like Magnum Too is seen off the Mozambican side near Santa Maria. It is not formally confirmed in public records as the same vessel, but it becomes one of the last possible glimpses while she is still afloat. On Sunday morning, the worst expectation is met. Search teams locate a ski boat on the Mozambique coastline in the Dobela or Ponta Dobela area. It matches Magnum Too. She is wrecked on the sand and extensively burned. Mozambican authorities move in on the ground. They find the boat wrecked and charred. They do not find the men. There is no sign of John Dercksen, no sign of his passenger. Some reports mention a fuel can and pieces of equipment nearby, but no bodies on the beach and no clear story written in the sand. The sea rescue statement from that weekend ends with a line that still holds true. Both men remain missing in unknown circumstances. In a case full of rumors, that sentence is the cold, confirmed center. From here, the mystery leaves the water and becomes something more complicated. The wreck lies on Mozambican soil. The trip began in South Africa. Any investigation has to cross a border and involve agencies that do not answer to each other quickly. What began as a missing skipper alert is now also a cross-border criminal inquiry. South African police, Mozambican authorities, and international channels are drawn into a case that starts with a burned hull and a missing man, and quickly begins to touch on parole records, fraud cases, and questions about how the suspect even got into court. In the days after the wreck is found, local media report that a man who had been on the boat is identified as a person of interest and later arrested in Mozambique. Those details, including his name and prior fraud conviction, come from news coverage and interviews, not from any completed trial about what happened at sea. Authorities speak of coordination between countries and of technical processes that have to be followed before anyone can be put properly before a South African court. From the outside, it starts to look like the story is moving toward a courtroom and maybe, finally, an explanation. Instead, a twist arrives. In May 2024, charges linked to the disappearance are provisionally withdrawn in a magistrate's court. Officials say the case has to be referred higher up to check whether the procedures used to bring the suspect before court were correct. Media reports say that while the disappearance case stalls, the same man remains in custody on separate matters tied to an older fraud conviction and parole conditions. Later, further reports claim he absconded while on community service and is once again being sought. Those later details are reported allegations, not findings, and they sit at the blurry edge of what the public actually knows. For the family, none of the technical language changes the daily reality. John Dercksen is still missing. No one has been convicted of harming him. The boat that carried him is a burned shell in another country. The legal process, instead of closing the case, has opened more questions. In the months that follow, his relatives keep pushing. They speak to newspapers, they ask for updates, they plead with the public not to circulate fake news about miracle rescues or secret sightings. Their plea is simple: do not give us false hope. They watch rumors spiral anyway, because that is what happens to mysteries once they hit the internet. Every silence becomes a blank space people feel free to draw on. Every delay becomes fuel for theories that are more exciting than they are helpful. Eventually, they turn to outside organizations for assistance, asking for legal and investigative support beyond what the state seems able to provide. It is a sign of both determination and frustration. They do not want this case to join the long list of stories the sea has taken and never returned. At this point, it is tempting to jump straight to conclusions. A burned boat, missing men, a passenger with a criminal history. It feels like a crime story that should be simple, but there has been no trial and no verdict. So what we are allowed to talk about here are lanes, not answers. Think of them as possibilities on a chart. Each one fits some of the facts and fails others. None of them is confirmed. All of them help us understand why this case refuses to settle. The first lane is the one people reach for instinctively: robbery or piracy that escalates. An experienced skipper takes a stranger out. The booking is odd. The boat appears to head north. The hull ends up burned on a Mozambican beach. The men vanish. In this version, someone out there wanted the boat, the motors, or simply a seaborne taxi to a rendezvous point. Burning the boat later is about wiping fingerprints, DNA, and any clue of what else it carried. The second lane shifts the focus from theft to movement. On this coastline, small craft can be used for many things besides fishing: moving goods, moving people, hugging the shore to dodge checkpoints, linking points that do not want to appear connected. Some reports have suggested that the trip might not have been only a casual day on the water. If the client was seeking a way across the border by sea, or using the charter as cover for another kind of meeting, then everything that happens after launch sits in the shadow of that hidden agenda. In that scenario, the men could be forced off the boat, taken elsewhere, and silenced. The boat could be used once and then burned as disposable transport. Or an accident at sea could be followed by conscious choices to erase the evidence rather than call for help. None of those are confirmed. They are just shapes that fit into an empty space. Lane 3 treats Magnum Too as the main target. A solid, seaworthy ski boat has value for fishing, for smuggling, for resale far from her home harbor. In this view, the key fact is not where the men went, but what the boat may have been used for between Sodwana and Dobela. If the boat was commandeered or lured into another purpose, her burned hull on a remote beach could be the end of that side job, not the beginning. A used tool, discarded and set on fire to make sure no one ever traces the fingerprints on the handle. The fourth lane is the one nobody wants to admit because it is messy and cruel. The ocean is dangerous. Accidents happen. A fall overboard, A wave at the wrong angle, a collision. Even the best skippers can be lost in a moment. But the burned hull on the beach and the booking anomalies do not sit comfortably with a purely accidental story. So the only way this lane works is if something unplanned happened first, and someone then chose to make it worse. By abandoning the site, by burning the boat, by walking away from the responsibility to report and explain. If that is what happened, then the most haunting part of this case is not a stranger with a plan, but an ordinary human being who looked at another human being's worst moment and decided that protecting themselves mattered more than telling the truth. Beyond those lanes, the imagination goes further. Maybe both men survived and are living under other names. Maybe they were pulled into something bigger than a single charter and are being held somewhere. Right now, there is no public evidence to support those stories. They live where all desperate hopes live, between we do not know and we cannot bear the alternative. For the purposes of this episode, the most honest summary is painfully simple. There is no proof that either man survived. There is no body that proves they did not. What we have in the public record is a burned boat, a missing skipper, a missing client, and a set of troubling details that refuse to lock into place. On the Mozambican side, Magnum Too's hull sits in photographs as a blackened shell on the sand, a boat that used to carry tourists and locals and now carries only questions. The tide comes in, washes around her, and retreats, erasing footprints almost as fast as they are made. On the South African side, agencies have logged hours, fuel, and paper on this case. A family has watched court dates slide and hearings stall. Other skippers look out at the ocean they work on every day and wonder how a man as well known as Matambu could leave harbor and simply not come back. Over all of it hangs one sharp question. How does a man with a name, a reputation, and a community vanish in broad daylight on a booked charter and leave behind no story that everyone can agree on? You do not have to solve it in the comments. You do not have to name a suspect. Cases like this are a reminder that mystery is not just fog, castles, and folklore. Sometimes it is a very real boat on a very real beach, a missing person poster, and a silence held open by distance, bureaucracy, and the sea. Until something changes, the question of what happened on Magnum Too stays exactly where rescuers left it that first weekend. 2 men missing, foul play strongly suspected, circumstances unknown.